Kyoko is chosen as the class president since people find that she is kind and popular. As her classmates congratulate her, Tsuyoshi suddenly arrives, covered in injuries. The teacher checks if he's alright before asking him to introduce himself. Kyoko watches him curiously as he's assigned the desk next to hers. As she observes him, Kyoko can't help but notice how his appearance contrasts with his name. Over the next few days, Tsuyoshi keeps showing up with fresh injuries, sparking Kyoko's concern. During lunch, she vents her worries to her classmate Mei, admitting she's extremely curious about what's going on. She wonders if Tsuyoshi is a victim of bullying or even worse, domestic violence. Mei feels suspicious over Kyoko's concern but suggests they follow him after school to uncover the truth. They do just that, trailing him from a distance. Since Tsuyoshi walks normally, Mei assumes nothing dangerous is happening. Kyoko insists they keep watching but gets distracted when she notices Mei's bow is untied. By the time she looks towards him, he's already hit his head on a tree branch. As they continue observing, they notice him bumping into things most people would avoid. They quickly conclude that Tsuyoshi isn't being bullied. The injuries are there because he's just incredibly clumsy. Still, Kyoko can't help but worry even more. Later, the two girls part ways to head home. On her way home, Kyoko notices a little girl with scraped knees and rushes over to check on her. The girl explains tearfully that she fell after almost getting hit by a bike. Kyoko takes out the first aid kit she always carries due to having younger siblings who often get hurt and gently patches the girl up. Once she's sure the girl is fine, Kyoko lets her run off to find her mother. Just then, Tsuyoshi appears nearby. Startled, Kyoko realizes he must have noticed her and Mei following him earlier. Holding his bleeding nose, Tsuyoshi admits he felt someone watching him and decided to follow that presence, only to discover it was Kyoko. She immediately apologizes, confessing that her curiosity and concern pushed her to trail him. Inwardly, she panics, imagining how the entire student body would ridicule her if word spread that she was stalking Tsuyoshi. Certain that he now sees her as a creep, Kyoko braces for the worst, but instead Tsuyoshi gently smiles. He tells her he finds her kindness and worry touching and explains that his countless injuries are simply the result of his clumsiness. He bids her farewell, leaving Kyoko staring blankly into space, stunned that he called her kind. Even when she returns home to her siblings, she's still bewildered. To her, what she did was simply normal. She goes about her routine in an odd daze as she thinks of Tsuyoshi. Before turning off the lights in her siblings' room, she notices that she had caught Tsuyoshi's nosebleed. The next day, Kyoko checks in on Tsuyoshi and learns he made one of his finger injuries worse by jamming it into something. Out of curiosity, she asks if he's ever caught a cold. Tsuyoshi beams as he replies that he's never had one in his life, though he admits he gets injured often. Kyoko thinks it's an odd thing to be proud about, but Kyoko notices fresh blood trickling from his forehead and alerts him. Tsuyoshi realizes it must have been from when he hit his signboard on his way to school. He excuses himself to head to the nurse's office, and Kyoko follows out of worry. On the way, she fails to notice a group of boys about to bump into her. Luckily, Tsuyoshi sees it coming and quickly pulls her toward him. Realizing how close he's holding her, he immediately lets go and apologizes. As he picks up his dropped handkerchief, Tsuyoshi remarks that he doesn't mind getting hurt, as long as the people around him stay safe. He assures her not to worry since he's sturdy enough to take a little pain. But this doesn't ease Kyoko's concern. Later, she confides in Mei, who brushes it off, telling her to focus on more important things like their upcoming tests. Yet, as Mei listens to how much Tsuyoshi occupies Kyoko's thoughts, she comes to the conclusion that Kyoko must have a crush on him. The words make Kyoko freeze as if she's only now realizing her own feelings. The following morning, Tsuyoshi greets her first, and to Kyoko's surprise, he has no new injuries. She studies his face closely, noticing how clear and handsome his features look without being hidden behind bandages. Her cheeks heat up, and out of embarrassment, she suddenly blurts out that their class needs to attend an assembly during first period, and they should line by the hallway. For the rest of the day, Kyoko is in a daze. Even when she returns home, her mind is restless and she ends up unable to sleep a single wink. When she admits this to Mei, her friend is shocked that it took her so long to realize her feelings. Kyoko hurriedly tells her to keep quiet because no one else can know. She can't help but wonder how to act around Tsuyoshi now, especially since she feels shyer every time he's near. As classes begin, Kyoko notices Tsuyoshi is absent and wonders if he might have finally caught a cold. But when he fails to show up for several days, she begins to worry. Even Mei remarks that his absence feels unusual. Kyoko wants to check on him at home, but she doesn't know where he lives or even how to contact him. One afternoon, while returning her class's workbooks to the faculty room, Kyoko finds the teacher too busy on the phone to acknowledge her. As she waits, she overhears the teacher asking about Tsuyoshi, who is apparently in the hospital. When she hears the words truck involvement, the color drains from her face. Panic seizes her and she bolts from school, sprinting straight to the nearest hospital. Out of breath and dragging her feet, she heads to the receptionist to inquire about his room, only to spot Tsuyoshi standing right beside her, sporting even more injuries than usual. They sit together and Tsuyoshi explains that he was nearly hit by a truck, but managed to run fast enough to avoid it. Unfortunately, he couldn't stop in time and ended up crashing straight into a wall. He reassures her that he's only in the hospital for some final medical examinations and that he'll be cleared to return to school tomorrow. Overcome with relief, Kyoko lightly teases him, asking if he managed to injure his usual finger as well. When he confirms it, she bursts out laughing. Tsuyoshi admits he's happy she skipped class just to check on him, causing Kyoko to freeze in realization at her own actions. He then asks if she can give him tomorrow's class schedule since his phone was crushed in the accident and he has no way to contact anyone. Kyoko's shoulders begin to shake with laughter again, leaving Tsuyoshi staring at her with curious eyes. From that day forward, the two steadily grow closer. One morning, Kyoko notices a new bandage on the back of his neck and asks about it. Tsuyoshi sheepishly explains that he simply slept wrong and now has a stiff neck, making it hard to turn his head. Even though Tsuyoshi insists she doesn't need to hold back from talking to him, Kyoko feels guilty, worrying that he only sees her as a seatmate and nothing more. During break, she vents her frustration to Mei. Mei reassures her that she and Tsuyoshi already seem like good friends, but adds that there's still a tall wall between them. The words strike deeper than Mei intended. As Kyoko watches Tsuyoshi cleaning the board, she realizes just how naturally kind and friendly he is to everyone, and realizes that there is a wall preventing them from becoming closer. As Kyoko observes Tsuyoshi throughout the day, she notices he seems to prefer keeping to himself rather than hanging out with others. Standing at the shoe lockers, she feels disheartened, wondering if she can ever break down the invisible wall between them. On her walk home, she spots Tsuyoshi walking a few paces ahead and remembers the sad expression he wore when he spoke of being fine on his own. Over the weekend, Kyoko suddenly declares in front of her siblings and Mei that she wants to become good friends with Tsuyoshi. Mei, however, looks unimpressed as she listens to Kyoko's reasoning. Kyoko explains that she wants Tsuyoshi to feel at ease around her, rather than constantly worrying that she might get hurt. As she wonders how to make that happen, her younger brother Soda tugs too hard on the bag of chips Mei is holding, spilling them all over the room. Mei only gives him a playful knock on the head before turning back to Kyoko, insisting she'll need a proper plan if she wants to get closer to Tsuyoshi. The next day, Kyoko tries their first strategy, eating a bunch of homemade cookies in front of Tsuyoshi, hoping it will tempt him to start a conversation. But before he can even ask for one, their classmates swarm around, begging for cookies. As the class happily digs in, Kyoko prepares to hand Tsuyoshi a bag, hoping this gesture will be the first step to breaking down his wall. But before she gets the chance, Mei urgently tells her that every cookie has already been eaten by their classmates. Mei barely managed to taste one herself, while Haruto happily announced that he ate 2 bags. Kyoko, however, is too preoccupied with her failed plan, silently swearing in her heart that she will find a way to break through Tsuyoshi's wall. She moves on to the next strategy by announcing she forgot her textbook, but in the process he accidentally jams his fingers, earning yet another injury. Though Kyoko continues to try, each attempt to get closer only seems to leave Tsuyoshi more battered. Eventually, she finds herself in an empty staircase, feeling utterly defeated. She begins to think that fate is against her because her presence is only causing Tsuyoshi more injuries. Tsuyoshi notices Kyoko sitting on the stairs and walks over to check if she's alright. Flustered, she quickly composes herself and instead asks about his injuries. Tsuyoshi reassures her that they're all fine. Feeling guilty, Kyoko panics when he turns to leave. Without thinking, she tugs on his uniform collar, accidentally popping off 2 of his buttons. Embarrassed, she hurriedly apologizes for all her unnecessary actions that caused his injuries and now for ruining his uniform. Tsuyoshi feels an odd warmth at her frantic honesty. Though he tries to hold it back, he eventually bursts into laughter, telling her that the buttons popping off were actually a funny surprise. As Kyoko watches him laugh, she notices how sloppily his finger bandages are wrapped, most likely because the nurse wasn't around. An idea sparks and she asks Tsuyoshi to let her treat his injuries instead. Showing him her small first aid kit, she proudly claims she's the best at patching people up. Though surprised, Tsuyoshi agrees and gives his hand to Kyoko. Kyoko carefully rewraps the bandages, making them neat and secure. After being satisfied with her work, she admits she wants to be good friends with him, but wonders aloud what else she can do for him besides tending to his injuries. Tsuyoshi stares at her in shock, and Kyoko realizes too late that her words sounded dangerously close to a confession. Softening, he gently smiles back, saying it feels nice to be cared for so deeply by her. He admits that what he truly wants is a normal high school life, where he can hang out with friends and enjoy after-school activities like everyone else. Moved, Kyoko's eyes well with tears. She declares that they'll live their high school lives to the fullest together. Smiling, Tsuyoshi then adds that her cookies were delicious, leaving Kyoko stunned, since she thought he never got the chance to try them. The next day at school, Mei asks Kyoko if she and Tsuyoshi are already dating. The question startles Kyoko, as they do seem close, but she quickly explains that she's only helping him experience a normal high school life. Neither of them really knows what that means, so they start asking people around school. However, everyone gives different answers, which only makes them more confused. Later, while Mei and Kyoko sit together thinking it over, Kyoko hears Haruto greet Tsuyoshi as he arrives in class. She looks up and notices a flower tucked into Tsuyoshi's shirt pocket. When Haruto points it out, Tsuyoshi is just as surprised as he is, as he had no idea it was there all this time. Mei and Kyoko move closer, intrigued by the strange situation. Tsuyoshi recalls passing by a woman carrying a bouquet on his way to school, so he assumes that the flowers must have come from her. However, when he checks his pants pocket and discovers another flower tucked inside, everyone begins to doubt it was just a coincidence. As Tsuyoshi carefully inspects the flowers, Kyoko can't help but admire the peaceful moment. Tsuyoshi mentions he might plant them, but when he catches Kyoko watching him so intently, he suddenly offers the flowers to her without hesitation. Kyoko freezes and it takes her a moment to respond, but then she enthusiastically snatches the flowers from his hand. Kyoko thinks this will finally be the start of Tsuyoshi's normal high school life, but after taking only a few steps away from her, he suddenly stumbles and falls flat on the floor, scattering his lunch everywhere. They soon learn that he almost never finishes lunch every day because something always happens. Embarrassed, Tsuyoshi admits it's true as he somehow drops it every single time. Finding it hard to believe, Kyoko comes up with an idea. Haruto then asks where Tsuyoshi usually eats since he always disappears during lunchtime. When he brings them to his spot, they're surprised to find a dimly lit, isolated staircase far from other students. Tsuyoshi explains that he eats there to avoid causing trouble for others. Wanting to change that, Kyoko volunteers that they should all eat together there from now on. With that, the three agree to eat lunch with Tsuyoshi, but the sky outside turns gray as they settle down. They share their food while Tsuyoshi eats a sweet bun he bought from the school store. As Kyoko watches him, she thinks this could be the first real step toward a normal high school life. However, when the weather suddenly worsens and the surroundings grow darker, she realizes this situation is anything but normal. They can barely see, so they switch on their flashlights, unintentionally making the scene look like a group of ghosts gathered in a hidden staircase. With the eerie atmosphere, they start telling spooky stories. While excitedly acting out, Haruto bumps into a trash can, which crashes into Tsuyoshi just as he's about to take a bite of his sweet bun. Both Tsuyoshi and his bun end up on the floor, so the next day they decide to just eat in the courtyard instead. They all agree to eat in the courtyard this time. On their way, they pass by some planted flowers, which reminds Tsuyoshi of the ones he gave Kyoko. She explains that they're currently at her house. In the courtyard, they finally enjoy a proper lunch break together. However, just as Tsuyoshi is about to eat the last piece of his hash brown, a crow swoops down and snatches it away, leaving everyone stunned. In the following days, Tsuyoshi's streak of bad luck continues. He keeps getting caught in bizarre accidents, with objects hitting him out of nowhere and causing him nosebleeds. Even the fortune gratin app he uses gives him the worst luck reading, and his hash brown even starts to look sinister. No matter what he does, disaster follows, and Kyoko begins to forget what a normal lunch break feels like. But just as she's bawling, Tsuyoshi steps in and thanks her. He's made up his mind to keep his distance from everyone, believing that his presence only brings misfortune to those around him. Although the others don't see it that way, Tsuyoshi insists that he doesn't want to ruin their peace anymore. Despite their hesitation, he decides to eat alone again the next day. His words make Kyoko tear up, and as he walks away, she suddenly calls out to him, volunteering to cook him lunch starting tomorrow. Everyone is shocked by her sudden declaration, but she insists, saying it would be a waste if he didn't eat it. This is the only way she can think of to make sure Tsuyoshi keeps eating with them. That night at home, Kyoko rummages through recipe books looking for delicious and healthy meal ideas she can try. Sure enough, the next day they return to the staircase for lunch. The packed lunch Kyoko prepared for Tsuyoshi looks amazing, and they also notice the place seems much brighter than before. As it turns out, Kyoko asks the custodian to replace the broken light bulbs so the space feels warm and welcoming again. As they prepare to eat, Haruto reaches out to grab an egg roll from the lunch Kyoko made, but Mei quickly stops him. Instead, Tsuyoshi takes the first bite. Watching him, Kyoko grows nervous about his reaction, but to her surprise, his eyes widen in delight as he's immediately taken aback by how delicious it is. His bright expression only makes Haruto want to taste it even more. However, Mei stops him once again and claims the next bite is for herself, insisting she deserves it because she's Kyoko's best friend. Just like Tsuyoshi, Mei lights up the moment she tastes the food. Haruto grows desperate to try it too, but Mei teases him by running around with the egg roll in her hand, keeping it away from him. The playful chase makes Tsuyoshi burst into laughter. Kyoko pauses for a moment, watching him, realizing this is the first time she's ever seen him laugh so loudly. Even Mei, who was busy earlier, suddenly pauses to watch Kyoko and Tsuyoshi laughing together. She's happy to see her best friend making progress with him. While she's lost in thought, Haruto suddenly takes a bite of the egg roll in her hand. Impressed by Kyoko's cooking, Haruto wants to compliment her, but Mei doesn't want him to interrupt the two, so they end up scrambling playfully. In the process, they accidentally knock over a box full of items down the stairs. Unfortunately, it hits Tsuyoshi, who falls face first onto the floor. Kyoko rushes to his side and calls out to him, but he doesn't get up right away. After a while, Tsuyoshi finally opens his eyes and notices that his lunchbox still has his hash brown intact. Without hesitation, he eats it in one bite. Everyone cheers happily as he finally gets to enjoy his favorite food. He manages to finish lunch, though Kyoko has to bandage him afterward. While bandaging him, Kyoko realizes how small moments like this can make her so happy. She wants to say something more but struggles to find the right words. Finally, she blurts it out. She wants to eat lunch with Tsuyoshi every day from now on. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi smiles brightly. However, blood suddenly starts dripping from his forehead and he faints on the spot. Panicked, they decide to bring him to the nurse. Even unconscious, his face still wears a peaceful smile. That afternoon, they head to art class where they are tasked with drawing each other's faces. Students are paired with their seatmates, which means Kyoko and Tsuyoshi end up together. Just as they're about to begin, Kyoko notices that Tsuyoshi has somehow managed to get himself stuck in the easel already. After a few minutes, they finally free him, though his hands end up slightly injured. Once things settle down, they begin drawing each other, but their constant chatting distracts them. The teacher eventually reminds them to focus, or they'll have to stay longer to finish their work. As time passes, the students begin working on their portraits, with each of them drawing their respective seatmate. Meanwhile, Mei struggles to draw Haruto because he won't stop making silly faces in front of her. But when her gaze shifts to Kyoko and Tsuyoshi, she notices how focused they both are. Neither of them even looks up to see each other's faces. Seeing their concentration motivates her to try harder as well. Hiroko's focus, however, is soon interrupted when Tsuyoshi's easel suddenly collapses. She can't quite understand how that could happen again, but the teacher quickly approaches and reassures him, explaining that the easels are old and probably rotten already. Deep down, Kyoko and Tsuyoshi both know the teacher is just trying to make them feel better, so they simply bow to apologize. To keep going, they decide to use the table instead of the easel. As Kyoko watches Tsuyoshi sharpen his pencil with a cutter, she tries to start a conversation. But before she can say anything, the pencil snaps and the blade slips, giving Tsuyoshi yet another small cut on his finger. After 20 minutes, a few students have already raised their hands to signal they're finished. Mei, however, can't help but notice that Kyoko and Tsuyoshi are the ones left furthest behind, even though they are the ones exerting the most effort. Tsuyoshi keeps muttering quiet apologies and thanks to Kyoko, which flusters her, but she forces herself to focus on her drawing. Still, she can't shake off the thought that she's never been this close to him before. Her gaze lingers on Tsuyoshi as he rests his chin on his hand, still holding the pencil. The scene already makes Kyoko's heart flutter, but then another small disaster strikes as the pencil's tip accidentally pierces the skin on his face, causing it to bleed. Kyoko panics at this, but Tsuyoshi remains calm and simply pulls out a handkerchief to wipe the blood away. For a brief moment, Kyoko admires the scene before her. She beats Tsuyoshi's eyes and he looks back at her. Her heart begins to pound loudly. Then Tsuyoshi simply comments on how long her eyelashes are. He says they look like a kind of defensive mechanism because they protect the eyes from debris, leaving Kyoko both stunned and speechless. Kyoko casually mentions that her long eyelashes are genetic, but soon realizes just how over the moon she is from Tsuyoshi's comment. In that moment, she finally admits to herself that she has a big crush on him, even though he doesn't seem to feel the same way. He can't even properly pin his paper for one. Still, she pushes those thoughts aside and focuses on finishing her drawing. They continue working until time runs out. Before collecting their works, the teacher instructs everyone to show their drawings to each other. Mei's drawing of Haruto turns out terrible, but she defends herself, saying it's because he spent the entire time making silly faces, making it impossible for her to draw him properly. What shocks her, however, is that Haruto's drawing of her is almost a perfect replica. Curious, Mei asks Tsuyoshi and Kyoko if they're finished. She wants to see their drawings, but Kyoko hesitates, worried that her feelings might show through the drawing. But when she finally hands it over, both Mei and Tsuyoshi are stunned, as it looks absolutely nothing like Tsuyoshi at all. With that, they turn to Tsuyoshi to see his drawing. To their surprise, it looks stunning despite the couple of injuries he got while working on it. Everyone is impressed by how skillfully he captured Kyoko's features, and even Kyoko becomes flustered seeing how good she looks in his drawing. Despite her own terrible sketch, Tsuyoshi compliments Kyoko and asks if they can take a picture together with their portraits. Blushing, she agrees. They sit next to each other, holding up their drawings proudly, while Mei snaps a photo of them. It's a simple moment, but it feels special. The next day, while everyone else is getting ready for PE, Kyoko is completely absorbed in her phone, staring at the photo of her and Tsuyoshi. It's only when Mei reminds her that class is about to start that she snaps out of it. When they arrive at the school gym, they're immediately greeted by a flying ball that smacks straight into Tsuyoshi's face. Everyone gasps in surprise, but Tsuyoshi stays composed even as his nose starts bleeding. A moment later, it's announced that their regular teacher is absent and a substitute will be handling their class. He decides they'll be playing dodgeball, which earns cheers from the students until he adds that the shuttle run has been rescheduled for next week, causing their excitement to fade. The teacher splits the class into 2 teams. As usual, they divide the boys and girls through a round of rock, paper, scissors. As everyone gathers to play, Kyoko silently hopes she'll end up on the same team as Tsuyoshi. However, when the results are decided, she finds herself on the opposing team. Kyoko immediately starts stressing over it, wishing she had chosen scissors instead. She worries that she won't be able to protect Tsuyoshi from getting injured during the game. Once the teams are set, the teacher blows his whistle to signal the start of the dodgeball match, but nobody moves. It turns out they still need to determine which team will serve first, so the students suggest doing a jump ball. Kyoko's team quickly chooses Hashiba to jump since he's big and strong. The opposing team takes longer to decide until Haruto suggests Tsuyoshi should do it because of his athletic ability. Everyone stares at him in surprise for a moment, but Tsuyoshi eventually agrees. As the 2 jumpers face each other, the instructor prepares to throw the ball. Whispers ripple through the gym as many students are unsure about Tsuyoshi. But when the teacher finally tosses the ball, Hashiba hesitates after noticing that Tsuyoshi is actually left-handed. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi leaps higher than Hashiba and successfully wins the jump. The gym immediately erupts with cheers for Tsuyoshi while Hashiba's teammates gather to comfort him. Kyoko, however, despite losing the jump, looks unreasonably thrilled, leaving her teammates confused. As the game begins, Kyoko can't take her eyes off Tsuyoshi. Her mind replays the moment he coolly outjumped Hashiba, but her expression quickly hardens. She knows the game has just started and anything can happen before it ends. Even if she wants to help him, they're on opposing teams, so it'll be difficult. Just then, Mei suddenly speaks up behind Kyoko. While they're chatting, Kyoko fails to notice the ball flying straight toward her. Fortunately, Hashiba reacts quickly and catches it just in time. Kyoko apologizes in a panic, and Hashiba sternly reminds her to focus on the game. Still, even in the middle of the action, she can't get Tsuyoshi out of her head. Moments later, cheers echo as Tsuyoshi effortlessly catches the ball. He steps forward preparing to throw. His teammates wonder if he's actually going to pull it off, but to their surprise, he hurls the ball with incredible force, almost knocking his opponent down when it hits. The gym erupts in cheers once again, and Kyoko finds herself admiring him even more. However, despite his skill, the ball has already hit Tsuyoshi multiple times. Thanks to the face doesn't count rule, he's still in the game, but his nose is bleeding again from all the hits. As the game wears on, Kyoko's teammates are eliminated one by one. Instead of focusing, Kyoko's mind is completely occupied by Tsuyoshi. Then by chance, Kyoko manages to catch the ball, earning her the opportunity to throw it back at the opposing team. The crowd erupts in cheers, but her excitement quickly fades when she realizes that the only 2 players left on the court are her and Tsuyoshi. She's supposed to aim at him, but the thought of hitting him makes her freeze. She wants to protect him. Conflicted, she clutches the ball nervously, and when she finally throws, it comes out as a complete disaster. The entire gym falls silent, stunned by her unexpected failure. Kyoko quickly apologizes to her teammates, pretending her poor throw was just a mistake. Deep down, however, she knows her personal feelings completely got in the way. The next throw is given to Hashiba. The gym buzzes with excitement as everyone cheers for Tsuyoshi to dodge. But when Hashiba hurls the ball toward him, Tsuyoshi doesn't move. He simply raises one hand to shield himself and manages to touch the ball but fails to catch it. With that, the game ends and Kyoko's team wins. Her friends rush over to her, showering her with congratulations. But her eyes drift toward a corner where Tsuyoshi is quietly tending to his face, so she decides to take him to the nurse's office. Inside, both Kyoko and the nurse stare at his face, which is bruised in several places. The nurse assumes someone must have made fun of him, but when Tsuyoshi explains that it all came from dodgeball, the nurse can hardly believe it. As they leave the nurse's office, Kyoko can't hold back her curiosity any longer and brings up the moment at the end of the game, saying she suspects Tsuyoshi might have lost on purpose. But Tsuyoshi immediately denies it, insisting he simply messed up. Kyoko hesitates but decides to trust his words. Before they part ways, she suddenly thanks him for being so cool during the game. The compliment catches Tsuyoshi completely off guard as he's more used to being seen as pitiful and not cool. Later in class, Kyoko confides in Mei, sharing her thoughts about Tsuyoshi and her suspicion that he's just pretending not to notice her feelings. As she walks down the hallway, Kyoko witnesses a boy accidentally bumping into a tall stack of books, scattering them across the floor. A kind girl immediately kneels down to help him pick them up. The boy's flustered reaction is quite obvious. With this, Kyoko comes to the conclusion that boys can react strongly to even the smallest act of kindness. Yet in her case, she's already given Tsuyoshi countless compliments and thoughtful gestures, but he still seems completely blind to her feelings. When school ends, Kyoko walks out the gate trying to shake off her thoughts about him. But as she strolls down the street, she spots someone with their head slumped into a bush and instantly assumes it's Tsuyoshi. To her surprise, when the person lifts their head, it's actually a total stranger. Still, she follows him discreetly and quickly confirms her suspicion. This man stumbles into accidents wherever he goes, just like Tsuyoshi. When she glances away for a moment and looks back, the man is already gone. She can't help but laugh at herself a little for following a complete stranger out of concern. Then, after taking a few steps, Kyoko suddenly notices a man wedged awkwardly between two walls. His sudden appearance startles her, but she quickly rushes over to check on him. She manages to pull him free, and the man thanks her. It turns out his wallet had fallen into the narrow gap, and while trying to retrieve it, he ended up getting himself stuck as well. But just as Kyoko reminds him to be careful, he immediately bumps into a nearby post. Now genuinely concerned, she pretends she's heading in the same direction just to make sure he gets home safely. The man also notices her school uniform and realizes she attends the same school as his son. Before long, they arrive at the man's house. He thanks Kyoko once again for helping him and bids her goodbye before heading inside. Just then, Tsuyoshi appears as well. Tsuyoshi invites Kyoko inside their home, and it turns out that the man from earlier is actually his father. Suddenly, Kyoko finds herself in an awkward situation, sitting inside her crush's house. Her mind races as she tries to figure out what to do, and in her nervousness, she ends up gulping down a full glass of iced tea in one go. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi and his father casually talk about her as the class president, leaving her overwhelmed. Noticing Kyoko's empty glass, Tsuyoshi stands to refill it, but he accidentally stubs his toe on the table leg, causing him to stumble and slump against a post. Fortunately, their house is covered with corner guards, so he avoids serious injury, though a small cut still bleeds. To Kyoko's surprise, they are fully prepared for situations like this, with a cabinet filled with adhesives and bandages that she initially mistook for a bookshelf earlier. As she steps in to help, Tsuyoshi's father wonders aloud if his son always causes her trouble, prompting her to deny it quickly. She even begins listing the things she admires about Tsuyoshi and nearly blurts out her feelings before stopping herself. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi remains clueless. Then Tsuyoshi's phone beeps, and he receives a message from his mother, prompting him to step outside to help her with the groceries. Kyoko considers leaving as well, but Tsuyoshi's father suddenly speaks up, casually asking if she likes his son. Startled, she's unable to hide her reaction, but to her surprise, he simply laughs warmly, genuinely pleased by the thought that someone truly cares about Tsuyoshi. He goes on to explain that Tsuyoshi inherited his tendency to focus so much on protecting himself that he rarely thinks about how others see him or whether anyone might have feelings for him. Because of this, he often fails to notice when someone likes him. Kyoko is left unsure how to respond. Sensing her sincerity, Tsuyoshi's father gently encourages her to keep staying by his side and remain close to him for the long run. A few moments later, Tsuyoshi returns, explaining that his mother ran into some friends and decided to stay behind. With a cheerful expression, he hands Kyoko a bag filled with snacks from a small store behind their house that he has loved since childhood, and he even points out a flavor for her to try. He explains that it's his way of thanking Kyoko. In that moment, Kyoko realizes that all this time she believed Tsuyoshi was ignoring her feelings. But in truth, he's been responding to her in his own quiet ways. With that, she decides to remain friends with him and take things slowly. Just then, a frightening portrait suddenly appears beside her, startling her. It turns out to be a self-portrait of Tsuyoshi's father, painted in an unexpectedly bold and intense style, and they seem quite proud of it. This makes Kyoko tell herself that Tsuyoshi's family truly is full of mysteries. The next day, Tsuyoshi visits the snack store and ends up carrying a lot of snacks. While he's there, the elderly woman who runs the shop accidentally drops a box of snacks due to sudden back pain. Concerned, Tsuyoshi quickly rushes over to check on her, but she reassures him that she'll be fine after a short rest. At the same time, a group of kids begins complaining about the malfunctioning snack machine, but she can't even stand up due to her back pain. Seeing this, Tsuyoshi volunteers to help her manage the store. That day, Tsuyoshi spends his time attending to customers and arranging snacks inside the shop. He has always felt grateful to the store, so he's genuinely happy to lend a hand. Still, the old woman remains worried about managing the shop in the coming days, so Tsuyoshi suggests that he come by whenever he can to help out. Although he thinks his presence might be a bit of a hassle, the old woman gratefully accepts his offer. After all, he's been visiting the store for years without ever causing any trouble. However, she recalls one incident long ago when Tsuyoshi accidentally dropped his snacks right outside the store and a passing car ran over them, smashing everything to bits. The next day, Kyoko is relaxing at home reading a book when her phone suddenly beeps. She checks it and sees a message from Tsuyoshi saying he has just started working at the snack store and inviting her to visit. Panicking, Kyoko immediately rushes there. At the store, Tsuyoshi is surprised to see her arrive so quickly, as he had just sent the message, but Kyoko explains that she came right away using her bike. Kyoko looks around at the colorful snacks, recalling how happy elementary kids looked going home with treats in hand. Tsuyoshi confirms they were his customers earlier. Impressed, Kyoko praises his new job, so Tsuyoshi explains what happened to Granny and why he decided to help out. Even though he still knew the customers have been really kind to him. Proudly, he also shows Kyoko the signage he made for the snacks, with each one featuring his signature dad jokes, amusing her. Looking around, Kyoko is impressed by the wide range of flavors available in the store. She even finds the exact one Tsuyoshi once recommended to her. Tsuyoshi proudly shows her the new flavors they recently added, which ends up tempting Kyoko to fill an entire cart with snacks. She can't help but recognize how Tsuyoshi might actually be a marketing genius. The next day at school, Kyoko opens one of the snacks she bought while Hashiba secretly watches her from afar. Suddenly, Tsuyoshi bursts into the classroom, covered in scratches and small wounds as usual. Concerned, Kyoko approaches him to ask what happened. Tsuyoshi explains that he tripped while walking through the courtyard and ended up falling face first into the bushes. He hadn't even realized some leaves were still stuck to him. When she notices a small cut on his cheek, she gently places a bandage on it, and Tsuyoshi can only thank her with a shy smile. After that, Kyoko goes to clean herself up, and that's when Mei suddenly points out that she seems more relaxed lately. Curious, Mei asks if something happened, and Kyoko recalls the words Tsuyoshi told her back at their home. She has always been anxious about many things, but his words somehow made her realize that simply spending ordinary days with him already makes her feel happy. With that thought, Kyoko decides to take things easy and just enjoy every moment of her school days. While walking, Mei brings up the new seating plan, which instantly makes Kyoko scream in surprise. Later in class, Kyoko is the one to lead the seat lottery alongside Hashiba, but her mood is noticeably gloomy. Hashiba decides to let students with poor eyesight sit in front first. However, one student raises her hand with a suggestion, reminding everyone that Tsuyoshi was once attacked by bees, so it was agreed before that he shouldn't sit near the windows. Then Haruto raises his hand too, adding that Tsuyoshi also shouldn't sit directly under the fluorescent lights since they might fall and hit his head. Surprisingly, the entire class agrees with both suggestions. They finally decide that the safest spot for Tsuyoshi is the centermost seat in the classroom. With everyone satisfied, Tsuyoshi can only smile and thank his classmates for their kind consideration. After that, it's time to draw everyone else's seats. The class scrambles around, cheering and laughing, but then Haruto speaks up again, suggesting that their class president, Kyoko, should sit beside Tsuyoshi since she's always taken care of him. Everyone quickly agrees to this, and it's settled that Kyoko will sit beside Tsuyoshi from now on. Kyoko can't hide her joy, and Tsuyoshi also expresses how happy he is about their new arrangement. While most students think the best seats are by the window, for Kyoko, sitting next to Tsuyoshi is more than enough. Overflowing with happiness, she even volunteers to pick up trash outside the classroom all by herself. Her classmates cheer for her enthusiasm, watching as she gathers the trash with a content smile on her face. At the garbage disposal area, Hashiba happens to spot Kyoko. She assumes he's just there to remind her about the committee meeting, but his reason is entirely different. Just as Kyoko is about to leave, Hashiba stops her. He gathers all of his courage and confesses that he actually likes her. Kyoko is completely stunned, but Hashiba quickly adds that he already knows she has feelings for Tsuyoshi, so he doesn't expect her to go out with him or anything. He just needed to finally let his feelings out after keeping them bottled up for so long. Before Kyoko can respond, the bell rings, signaling the start of the committee meeting, and they both rush toward the classroom. As they work on some paperwork for their class, Kyoko tries to act normal, but Hashiba notices the unease in her voice, so he tells her to forget everything he said earlier. Lost in thought, Kyoko accidentally messes up the stapled papers she's holding, and Hashiba tries his best not to laugh. Instead, he volunteers to fix the problem for her. In the past, the two of them were organizing papers, chatting casually about the responsibilities of being committee leaders and how much work it actually took. To their surprise, they discovered that they were both fond of paperwork and even shared similar habits. One day, Kyoko bought a purple drink from the vending machine, which shocked Haruto, as everyone said it didn't taste good. Hashiba, still in line, noticed the drink they were talking about and realized it was red shiso juice, the same one he drank. Because of its mature flavor, Haruto admitted he had never seen anyone else drink it besides Kyoko, while Hashiba quietly hesitated, wanting to mention that he enjoyed it too. Another day, Izumi noticed a red stain on Hashiba's uniform. At first she panicked, thinking it was blood, but Hashiba quickly explained that it was just paint his little sister had used for her school project the night before. Just then, Kyoko arrived with the same red stain on her sleeves, and she admitted her little brother had also been working on his school project the night before. Izumi couldn't help but comment on how similar they were, not only because they were both the eldest siblings in their families, but even in how they typed messages, always formal and perfectly punctuated. In the present, Hashiba and Kyoko stay behind again to finish some paperwork. As they talk, the storm outside grows stronger and Kyoko suddenly pauses. Hashiba assumes she's afraid of thunder, which reminds him of a rumor about Tsuyoshi once being struck by lightning and surviving without injuries. He tries to bring it up, but Kyoko suddenly screams, pretending to be worried about Tsuyoshi when it's clear she's scared of the thunder. To hide her embarrassment, she drops her notebook and accidentally bumps her head on the table, making Hashiba quietly smile as he witnesses another side of her. The next day, Hashiba catches sight of Kyoko gently tending to Tsuyoshi in the classroom. With this, he stops himself from interrupting. From where he stands, it's painfully clear just how much Kyoko truly likes Tsuyoshi, so Hashiba steps back with a heavy heart, and his thoughts start to darken. In the meeting, while working on more paperwork, Kyoko accidentally gets a paper cut, and Hashiba quickly hands her a bandage to cover it. As they continue, Hashiba seems uneasy and admits that he doesn't actually want her to forget about his confession, even though he took it back yesterday. The following day, Kyoko's hands begin trembling from all the paperwork they've been doing lately. Mei notices this and reminds her of the promise she made to take things easy and simply enjoy her high school life. Meanwhile, on his way home, Hashiba is quietly following Tsuyoshi from a distance. As it turns out, earlier, he and his friends had planned to get takoyaki, but the moment he saw Tsuyoshi, curiosity got the better of him. Watching Tsuyoshi walk, a plastic bag suddenly wraps awkwardly around his head, so Hashiba couldn't help but wonder why Kyoko even liked him in the first place. Faced with this question, he ditched his friends and decided to follow Tsuyoshi, hoping to understand everything. Back in the present, Hashiba starts second-guessing his decision to follow Tsuyoshi, but before he can turn back, Tsuyoshi walks straight into a post. Still, he continues down the street and happens to pass by an old man trimming a tree nearby. Suddenly, the old man loses his grip on the cutter. Hashiba dashes forward and pulls him aside just in time. Startled, Tsuyoshi quickly thanks him, grateful that Hashiba just saved him. But before he can even react, a loose branch drops from above, causing a nosebleed. With that, the two sit down on a nearby park bench. Tsuyoshi's nose won't stop bleeding, so Hashiba helps him, even calmly explaining how to handle nosebleeds properly. He mentions that his little sister gets them often, so he's used to it. Tsuyoshi is touched by his kindness, but deep down, Hashiba begins to see that Tsuyoshi is surprisingly friendly. Then, Tsuyoshi hands Hashiba a snack he happened to buy earlier, offering it as thanks for saving him. Hashiba is about to refuse, but his stomach suddenly growls. Embarrassed, he accepts the snack and offers to share it instead. Flustered, Tsuyoshi agrees, and the two quietly begin eating together. Surprisingly, Tsuyoshi admits it's his first time ever sitting down and sharing a snack with someone like this, so Hashiba can't help but feel awkward, realizing he's casually hanging out in a park with his crush's crush. Their attention then drifts toward the nearby empty playground. They talk about how peaceful it feels having the place all to themselves, and Tsuyoshi suddenly suggests they play for a bit. Soon the two of them are bouncing back and forth on the children's spring rides, laughing despite how ridiculous it feels. Hashiba never imagined he'd end up doing something like this with Tsuyoshi, but as they continue to play, he realizes they're both genuinely having fun. Then Tsuyoshi starts bouncing his ride left and right, but he loses balance and crashes straight into the ground, hitting a nearby tree. Hashiba immediately rushes over to check on him, and Tsuyoshi sheepishly explains that he was pretending he was racing through a mountain pass but ended up messing up. Hashiba helps him back up, telling him it was actually a pretty cool idea and that he wants to try it too. Watching Tsuyoshi laugh it off, Hashiba can't help but think that Tsuyoshi is just a genuinely nice person. The next day, Hashiba spots Tsuyoshi in class and immediately walks over to check on his cuts. This catches Kyoko's attention so much that she almost doesn't notice Hashiba's greetings as he passes by. Still thinking about yesterday, Hashiba can't forget how much fun they had. He realizes he genuinely wants to be friends with Tsuyoshi now. So after class, when everyone starts heading home, Hashiba stops Tsuyoshi to ask him whether he has any feelings for Kyoko. Tsuyoshi looks confused by the sudden question, forcing Hashiba to admit that he likes Kyoko himself. Since Tsuyoshi and Kyoko seem close, he just wants to be sure. Tsuyoshi grows flustered, admitting he's always seen Kyoko as a good friend, though he isn't sure if that's truly enough. Hearing this, Hashiba's expression darkens for a moment, but he still manages to tell Tsuyoshi that it's perfectly fine. Tsuyoshi then thanks him and leaves the classroom, while Hashiba stands there, lost in thought. Later that day, during the committee meeting, Kyoko finds herself wondering how Hashiba and Tsuyoshi suddenly became friends. She wants to ask him, but before she can, the meeting ends. As everyone begins to leave, Hashiba approaches her first. Kyoko waits for what Hashiba is going to say, but he simply wishes her good luck out of nowhere, leaving her even more confused, while Tsuyoshi, standing outside the door, quietly witnesses the whole scene. The next day in class, Izumi invites Kyoko to help her study, explaining that midterm week starts tomorrow and she's completely lost. She gushes about how smart Kyoko is, but deep down, Kyoko panics. She knows she's not nearly as brilliant as everyone believes. Despite being class president, her grades are only average. Still, Kyoko can't bring herself to refuse Izumi's request. The moment she agrees, Izumi lights up with delight. When Mei arrives, Kyoko immediately pulls her close and mentions that she's ranked third in class. Hearing this, Izumi eagerly invites Mei to join their study session too. To everyone's relief, Mei accepts, making both Kyoko and Izumi even happier. Just then, Tsuyoshi enters the room, only to bump his head on a cabinet door and fall flat on the floor. His academic charm tears apart in the process. Ignoring his bleeding nose, Tsuyoshi stares at the shredded charm in horror, devastated that it broke right before midterms. The three girls can only stare in stunned silence. Seeing his distress, Kyoko gently suggests that he join their study session later. After class, the five of them gather around a single table at a family restaurant. It's an unusual mix of personalities. Mei, however, can't help but question why Haruto is there. Haruto sheepishly explains that he's fallen behind in his studies and has started worrying about his future, so he desperately needs their help. As they chat, Izumi brings up Tsuyoshi's torn charm again, saying it feels like an omen since it broke the very first day he wore it. The conversation shifts to his grades, catching Kyoko's interest. Tsuyoshi admits they're not great, prompting Haruto to recall a story from their freshman year. He once gave up midway through a test and noticed Tsuyoshi's paper covered in blood. He thought Tsuyoshi had cut himself, but it turned out he'd simply rubbed too hard, causing his skin to bleed. The situation became awkward fast, and time ran out before he could do anything. Hearing this, everyone feels bad for Tsuyoshi. Kyoko wants to support him, but since they won't be seated together during the exams, there's little she can do. Mei, however, turns her attention to Haruto, scolding him for giving up so easily back then. Soon, a large plate of fries arrives and everyone eagerly digs in. But just as Kyoko is about to take a bite, she suddenly remembers she didn't bring any textbooks. And to her dismay, everyone else forgot theirs too. Their attention shifts again when Tsuyoshi accidentally splits his chopsticks in half. Everyone stares in disbelief, and to make matters worse, he gets a splinter. Kyoko quickly bandages his finger and hands him a new pair of chopsticks, while Izumi mentions that a guest will be joining them soon. For now, she tells everyone to just enjoy the fries. A few minutes later, Hashiba arrives and immediately scolds them for not having a single textbook in sight. Izumi brushes it off, saying she invited him because he's the smartest in their class. After greeting everyone, he takes the seat beside Kyoko, flustered and apologizing for being sweaty from practice. They finally begin studying, but after only a few minutes, both Izumi and Haruto are already slumped over the table, completely drained. Tsuyoshi, on the other hand, remains focused, diligently answering questions, while the other two have already given up on the first one. Even Kyoko struggles with some problems, prompting Hashiba to step in and explain. His clear explanations help her catch up quickly, and she can't help but compliment how intelligent and athletic he is. Across the table, Tsuyoshi quietly watches, his eyes shimmering with a mix of awe and melancholy. Later, Kyoko excuses herself to go to the restroom, and Tsuyoshi stands up at the same time, so they walk there together. Once inside, Tsuyoshi stumbles and falls. Kyoko panics and rushes to help, but he insists he's fine and tells her to go ahead. Though she reluctantly obeys, he seems deeply unsettled by something. Meanwhile, back at the table, the others talk about surviving the upcoming exams and make a pact. If they get through midterms, they'll all go to karaoke together to celebrate. The next day, when exams finally end, the classroom erupts in collective relief. Kyoko and Mei are chatting when Izumi bursts in, thrilled about how well she did thanks to their study session. Even Haruto admits he might pass for once. Excited, Izumi invites everyone to karaoke, and the two girls immediately agree. Coincidentally, Hashiba passes by, so Izumi quickly invites him too. He initially declines, but when he sees Kyoko's enthusiastic expression, he changes his mind. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi bumps his head under the table while picking up an eraser, and they take the opportunity to invite him as well. He shyly accepts. While everyone plans their outing, Kyoko checks on Tsuyoshi, wanting him to experience a normal high school life. She asks where he wants to go. To her surprise, he chooses a nearby burger shop popular among students. When they arrive, he takes pictures with the mascot outside before heading in. Inside, he's overwhelmed by the menu, unsure what to order. Hashiba offers practical tips on budgeting while Kyoko explains the discounts. The two chat casually as Tsuyoshi listens in quiet awe. When the food arrives, Izumi cheerfully points out that Kyoko and Hashiba acted like parents, fussing over what Tsuyoshi should order for his first burger shop visit. Kyoko blushes at the comparison, and even Mei admits it fits, while Haruto jokes that Mei can be the neighborhood auntie, earning an annoyed glare from her. As Izumi keeps teasing about them being like a family, Tsuyoshi quietly takes a bite of his burger, and his whole face lights up with a pure, radiant smile. Everyone falls silent, watching in awe. Moved by his joy, each of them starts sharing half their food with him until his tray is overflowing. Hashiba chuckles that he feels like a grandparent spoiling his grandkid, and Tsuyoshi happily eats. But when he bites into an apple pie, it burns his cheek, making him yelp softly. Kyoko immediately presses her cold drink against his face to soothe it, while Hashiba apologizes, guilt written all over his face. After Kyoko gently bandages his burns, Tsuyoshi resumes eating, his bright smile returning, relieving everyone. Feeling proud, Hashiba sighs, prompting Izumi to teasingly call him Dad. Soon after, Kyoko complains that her fries are too crispy since she prefers them soft. Hashiba offers his in exchange, saying he likes the crispy ones better, and they trade plates. Seeing this, Tsuyoshi notices his fries are soft too and shyly offers them to Kyoko, but she politely refuses, not wanting to take more food from him. Flustered, he eats them himself, looking a little dejected. While eating, Hashiba notices a small stain on Kyoko's cheek. No matter how she wipes, she keeps missing the spot. After a few failed directions, he sighs, takes out a tissue, and gently wipes it off himself. Kyoko freezes, and Hashiba awkwardly explains that he's just used to doing that for his little sister. Izumi quickly steps in to break the tension, and Kyoko jokes that at least now she knows where the stain was. Everyone laughs and the mood lightens again. As they prepare to leave, Tsuyoshi bumps his foot on the table, prompting Kyoko to stay behind to check on him. Once the others are gone, Tsuyoshi sheepishly admits he wasn't hurt at all. He just wanted to see if Kyoko really saw him as a child. Realizing how awkward that sounds, he fumbles for an excuse, leaving Kyoko speechless as they walk toward the karaoke place. When they arrive, everyone learns it's Tsuyoshi's first time there. As they chat, Hashiba adjusts the room temperature and warns everyone to watch out for a tear in the couch, especially Tsuyoshi. Kyoko finds his thoughtfulness charming, while Tsuyoshi hides his face in embarrassment. Once everyone settles, they decide who should sing first. The group unanimously cheers for Hashiba, but he quickly refuses, flustered by the attention. Meanwhile, Kyoko notices Tsuyoshi growing quiet. Even when Izumi calls him over, he lingers awkwardly in the corner. When he finally sits, it happens to be on the exact torn spot Hashiba warned about, so he gets stuck. Kyoko panics, but he refuses to look at her, reminding her of her younger brother's rebellious phase. The three girls then sing together, choosing a German song they'll need for next week's test. As Kyoko sings, her voice is confident and clear, her pronunciation flawless. Everyone listens in amazement, applauding loudly when she finishes. Pride swells in her chest, but she also feels strangely uneasy. Amid the noise, she catches Tsuyoshi muttering a quiet compliment, shocking her. Just moments ago, he wouldn't even meet her eyes, and now he's praising her singing. Even as the others cheer, Kyoko can't stop thinking about him. When their eyes finally meet, he immediately looks away. Tsuyoshi excuses himself to get a drink, but Kyoko follows him. He tries to walk faster, yet she keeps up without hesitation, refusing to let him avoid her again. When he finally turns around, he sees the sadness written across her face. Kyoko asks if she did something wrong, but before he can answer, the door beside him swings open, hitting him twice in a row. Startled by the noise, people rush over, but Tsuyoshi insists he's fine and walks away as if nothing happened. Kyoko walks beside him, still worried. That's when Tsuyoshi softly says he could never hate her. The words make her cheeks flush. When they return, Hashiba asks what took them so long, and Tsuyoshi merely says he got lost. As Mei and Haruto start singing, Kyoko still doesn't have her answer, as Tsuyoshi can't stop replaying her question in his mind, wondering why he's been avoiding her at all. Then the lyrics of the song catch his attention. They suggest that avoiding someone's gaze might mean you're falling in love. And in that moment, Tsuyoshi finally realizes what his feelings for Kyoko truly are. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.